Hello students, welcome to week 1 of Business 340, Principles of Management. There are a number of objectives we're going to accomplish this week, and some of those include explaining the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. They are different. We're going to understand the differences between old style managers and the new style managers and different styles of management in between. We're going to appreciate an historical perspective of the management theories as well. And we're going to understand what total quality management is. And we're going to be discussing some innovative management practices. Let's start with the definition. Management is the attainment of organizational goals in an effective and efficient manner through planning, organizing, leading, and controlling resources. That's right out of your textbook. The idea of efficiency and effectiveness, let's talk about that for a minute, needs to be discussed just briefly. Quite simply, we often interchange these two items, but they're not synonymous. Efficiency is a mathematical ratio of outputs to inputs. It's a quantitative measurement. It's a ratio of numbers, if you will. And efficiency is 100% for a process if there's 1 unit of output for every 1 unit of input fed into the process or into the system. If a process produces 2 units of output for every 1 unit of input, then the process is considered to be 200% efficient. Now, the target for efficiency is specific to an industry and a process. In some industries, 80% efficient is totally acceptable and you'd be a rock star, even worthy of being benchmarked by other people. But in other industries, 80% doesn't cut it. 95% efficiency is the expected level that you would need to get to. Effectiveness, though, is quite different. That was efficiency we were talking about. Now let's talk about effectiveness. It's different. It's not a numerical measurement, but more of how well an organization achieves its goal. It's a qualitative measurement, meaning it's described with words and phrases and themes and that sort of thing. It's not about numbers. So, an effective organization is one that is achieving its purposes while staying within its company values, its corporate values. Now, for many of you, you're on your way to becoming a manager. And this week, we're also looking at the manager's roles and activities. We'll also be looking at what it takes to become a brand new manager in your career at your company. Now, we're going to look at becoming a manager, those activities you got to do, and then those roles as well. In our current society, the way we manage people is rapidly changing. It seems there is an unending list of new innovative management practices in an evolving workforce. And I might add that some of those management practices are not based on research. They're just based on someone's opinion, maybe some of their experience. So some innovative practices you have to be very careful of. They're not based on research. So this week, though, we're going to be studying some of those changing workplace characteristics that are based on research. And these are skills, we're going to talk about skills that you need to have to thrive as a manager in today's business climate. So we're going to be looking at the new workplace characteristics and competencies as well. Now, as we look at the changing landscape of management practices, we're also going to look back at some classic practices that form the basis of many of our management systems today. And these are research-based practices from long ago. We're going to look at scientific management and bureaucratic organizational styles and some basic administrative principles. Now, it's important to remember that as we approach 2020, some of these classic management practices, they may seem kind of archaic and not very nice, actually, even crazy by today's standards. But in their day, they were revolutionary, groundbreaking, if you will. It's important to remember that today's researchers in business management stand on the shoulders of the researchers who developed these classic and even now archaic, in some cases, management practices. God has given us a great ability to be inspired and to learn about His creation. So before we dismiss those classics too quickly, remember, we had to know those older principles before being inspired to learn more about God's creation. Let me just talk for a moment about God's creation as it relates to this course. I believe that God has given us the ability to discover what He has already created. And I know that we often think of discovering the physical world when we think about God's creation. But you know what? I want to challenge you to think a little bit differently about that concept of discovery of the unseen world. Our relationships with each other, the organization of tasks, the organization of people, the rules governing commerce. God created the unseen as well as the seen during the week of creation described in Genesis. So, see this class as a way of discovering part of God's creation that we often don't give him credit for. We think man created all these rules. They're already there. Our job as discoverers, and that's what we get to find out during this class. Let's talk about the pace of this class for a moment. The class week begins on Monday and ends on a Sunday. Now, if you've been taking courses here, you already know that, but I'm just reemphasizing in case you don't. Pay close attention to the due dates for each weekly activity. If you cannot meet a due date, you need to reach out to me sooner than later and let me know what's going on, okay? If you contact me before you miss a deadline, I'll probably be gracious in extending some of the deadlines. But if you wait till after the deadlines, well, probably not so gracious, okay? I'd also like to talk just for a moment about the writing that you're going to be doing in this course. And by this time in your academic career, you really ought to be able to write a good, solid, scholarly paper using the APA guidelines. Now, under the how-to page, you'll find a video that I've put together for all the students who take my courses. I do have high expectations for your writing, okay? I'm not going to lie to you about that. I expect you to be a good writer. If you're a mediocre writer coming into this class, I'm going to challenge you really hard to become a better writer on the other side of it. I want you to improve and continually get better each week of each course that you take with me as an undergrad or as a grad student. So, if you want to get a good score on your writing assignments in this class, watch that video so you understand what I'm looking for. All right, that's it. As a reminder, your initial response to the discussion questions are due on Wednesdays by 11:59 p.m. in Arizona time. The weekly quiz is due by Friday, 11:59 p.m. And remember, if you turn those assignments in at midnight versus 11:59 p.m., they're considered late, even if it's by a minute. So don't miss those dates, those times, okay? And the writing assignment, it's due on Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Also, don't forget that I hold office hours each Tuesday evening from 7:30 p.m. until 8 p.m. in Arizona time. I live in Michigan, that's why I keep saying Arizona time. You can find the Zoom link to my weekly virtual office hours on the home page or in the course welcome tab on the how-to page. Listen, I'm excited to be working with you this term as we dig into this topic of principles of management. I look forward to getting to know you better as well. Listen, remember, God is on his throne. He's always been there, and he's always going to be. Have a great week.